ready, you can go ahead and begin.
Do you have a verse that you use to uplift or comfort yourself or others when you are struggling? I know I do. This for me is Deuteronomy 31 verse 6. And it reads, "Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them. For it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you." This comes from my Lutheran Study Bible, the ESV version on page 327. It is my confirmation verse, and I really love its uplifting words. This can be used in many circumstances. It can be used to comfort, encourage, and to help others overcome their fears. This is definitely what the Israelites needed to hear at this time. It gave them comfort as they were faced with troubles in an unknown future. Deuteronomy 31:6 is an inspiring verse that applies to both believers and non-believers, has an interesting background, and has a theme that is seen in many Bible verses and stories. Deuteronomy 31 verse 6's background is both intriguing and it is important to know when you're reading the verse so that you understand the context. And this was written by Moses, and he was currently the leader of the Israelites. It takes place in 1407 and 1406 BC in the plains of Moab. And if you look up here, it took place, so all the tribes of Israel are here, and Moab is right here. And that's where they were, right at this time. Moses was currently 120 years old at this time, and he was told by God that he would not cross the Jordan and lead the Israelites into the Promised Land. So Joshua is currently being inaugurated by Moses. He speaks Deuteronomy 31:6 to Israel to comfort them. He tells them to be strong, which may be difficult with a new and inexperienced leader who is very young. Many are troubled and afraid at their futures and what may be upcoming. These words gave them comfort, and they know now to put their trust in the Lord. And that came from my TLSB footnote on page 327. After learning about the background, it is also crucial to take a look at the theme and how it relates to other verses in the Bible. Many verses speak of strength and trust, and these are Isaiah 40 verse 29, Ephesians 6 verse 10, and Philippians 4:13. Isaiah 40:29 reads, "He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might he increases strength." This verse speaks of strength and power and how he gives the strength and power to the weary. Ephesians 6 verse 10 reads, "Finally, be strong in the Lord in his strength and might." And this tells you to be strong in the Lord, as does Deuteronomy 31:6. Philippians 4:13 reads, "I can do all things through him who strengthens me." This verse tells us to be strong in him and that we can do anything through the strength he gives us. Since there are many verses out there supporting this Bible verse's theme, it would only be fitting that there are also Bible stories to help us better understand this theme. The Bible story I chose is Gideon defeating Midian. This comes from Judges 7:19 through 25 on the Lutheran Study Bible, page 395 and 396. Gideon and his 3 men were split into 3 groups, each with 100 people in them. They were armed with only a lamp and a sword. And when Gideon gave his signal, they broke their lamps and blew their horns and shouted. This confused the Midianites, and they ended up fighting each other. They flee and are captured by the Israelites, and they are conquered. Although this story is a great example of how to trust in the Lord, some people may not believe in God. It is important for both believers and unbelievers to know that the Bible is more than just a story about God and his people, and that you can learn very important and valuable lessons from the Bible. Deuteronomy 31 verse 6 applies to both believers and unbelievers. It enlightens and encourages us to stay strong in the Lord. For believers, it tells us to put our trust in him give us a reminder that He's got our back. And as my confirmation verse, it reminds me not to worry or to be scared of the future. For unbelievers, it also enlightens and encourages. It tells them not to be afraid, and that although the world may be rough and scary, it is okay. It will all be okay. Both unbelievers and believers can take their lessons from the Bible and apply it to their lives. Deuteronomy 31:6 is a special verse that applies to both believers and unbelievers and has a long background with a theme that shows up in many other Bible verses and stories. This verse, spoken by Moses, was used to comfort the Israelites during their journey to the Promised Land, and it can be used as comfort to those who feel lost and scared in today's world. If you are ever in need of encouragement or need a reminder not to be afraid of what the future has in store, my confirmation verse, Deuteronomy 31:6, is just what you need to read.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause.